NSFW. What is the most disrespectful thing someone did in your house? Left piss jugs in the closet. Fuck you, Nathan. A girl I knew was keeping an eye on my cats and feeding the 2 fish while my girlfriend and I were on vacation. Before we left, we filled up the cat's large water bowl. It's the kind that has a reservoir, so we really only need to refill it about once a week, and we fully cleaned both of the fish tanks. When we got home, the cat's water bowl was completely dry and knocked over on the floor. Both fish tanks were filled with food. My betta tank had a battery pack in it and he later died. She came in the door with another girl. They had been at our apartment pool, while we were standing there in disbelief. Still gets me fired up every once in a while. I was going to pay her, but absolutely not after that, lol. Gave MDMA to our hamster during a party. She survived, but we were pissed. 6th grade, 1992-ish. A friend of mine had to take a shit and I guess there wasn't enough toilet paper left on the roll. He decided to wipe his ass on our bath towels and stuff it behind the sink. Never hung out with him again. My mom from then on would refer to him as shitty. Me and 2 of my bros were hanging out drinking at my house when I was around 18. I went to bed and they stayed up. When I got up the next day, my one friend told me to throw away one of my drumsticks. Found out a few days later that they blew each other and one of them shoved the drumstick up his ass. They both had girlfriends at the time. My wife tended to a tomato plant, one single tomato plant, for weeks to get one bud. She cultivated it, pruned it, watered it, everything. Just as it was getting to be picked, we had movers there and one ate it. Actually, he ate half and threw away the second half. 20 years later, I'd still think that my wife will kill that man if she saw him today. Stole my upstairs toilet. Pricks. Never having a party again. Yanked my blinds off the wall hard enough to break them and didn't apologize. My mom has an issue with blinds. She doesn't seem to understand the concept that you need to pull the string down and not away from the window if you want to raise them. As a consequence, blinds in her house have a pretty limited lifespan, often less than a year if it's one she opens frequently, since she's so rough with them. The blinds in my house were already a bit dodgy when I bought it, and I warned her that she needed to be gentle, but she insisted on violently pulling on the cord hard enough to bring them crashing down. If she'd done it once and apologized, that would be fine, but she did it every time she came over. I pointed out to her that the blinds no longer opened since she'd pulled them off the wall and that pulling on the cord would literally just pull them off the wall, and her response was basically that I should repair them. I actually put off repairing them for several years, since I rarely cared about opening them anyway, in hopes of making the point to her that she should be gentle with blinds, especially when they are other people's property, but I don't think she ever got the message. I did eventually replace the blind, but got ones without a cord to make it harder for her to damage them. Years ago, a kid in school used to host parties all the time as his parents were always away on weekends. Was great, being 16, always having somewhere to go and get shit-faced until someone took a shit in his kettle and we were never invited back. Apparently shit, when boiled, creates loads of nasty shitty foam that escapes the kettle, takes over the kitchen and leaves a stink for weeks. Friend of a friend of a friend stayed at my place and helped me build a fence over a few days. Then on the last night he took a bunch of acid and things took a weird turn. He cycled between threatening to attack me and trying to jerk off in front of me and my wife. Nice fence, but I would be hesitant to recommend them to a friend. Roommate's friend brought her dog over for the weekend while she stayed with us. She said it was her emotional support animal. Dog took a dump in my room and the friend refused to clean it up. Needless to say, I informed my roommate she was not welcomed back. On his first visit, a friend of a friend came to my house. He is around 150 kilograms, sits down in my extra gaming chair and pulls the pin so it tilts backwards, grabs each handle and starts bouncing so it lifts off the carpet a few times. You could hear the chair nearing its limits. I ask him what he is doing. He looks at me and says, "Chill bro, I was just testing the springs." I told my friend not to take him over ever again. Some of you might think it was harsh, but I could feel he is like this with everything. A friend was over with her husband and their 2 young children. They were here to meet my new baby. Their kids both were running and wrestling in the living room, and they knocked my drink off of my end table all over and onto the magazines I had below it. I asked her if I could get her a towel, and she says to me, "They already know they're grounded when they get home. They don't clean up there, either." I cleaned her own damn kids' mess in my own house. She wasn't kidding about them destroying their own house. Up high as they could reach was a band of crayon scribbles all along the rooms in *** every single room *** in that house. Obligatory not me but my best friend. Had another friend come over and hang out for a while. Guy goes to the bathroom and comes out a while later and said he needed to go home. About an hour later my buddy goes to that bathroom and finds the shower curtain covered in shit. He had apparently ran out of TP and decided the curtain was a good backup. That guy never answered any calls or texts and ghosted my buddy. Interesting fella. A friend and his girlfriend came over for a few drinks and to just hang out. She went into the bathroom almost as soon as she got there and stayed in there for over an hour. I only had one bathroom at the time, so this was a big inconvenience for bunch of drinking dudes. When she finally came out, we found that she had scavenged all the loose change laying around and had been smoking what we later found out was crack. When I told my friend what happened, he was super embarrassed and left with her immediately. We later found some of her crack wrapped in a foil gum wrapper and tossed it. My friend said she had forgot something and threw a fit when he wouldn't bring her back to get it. Had sex on my bed, didn't clean up, and left period blood all over my silk sheets. Have not invited them back to my home. Not exactly in my house, but close. Had a large fig tree in the backyard of my house. Rented the house out to a bunch of college girls one year while I house sat for my girlfriend's place. Her dad was a college offensive coordinator and ended up leaving for a job with a different school, and they couldn't unload the house just yet. They eventually sold their house. We moved back into my house, which, amazingly enough, now did not have a fig tree in the backyard. Motherfuckers uprooted and stole the fig tree. Dude would download bestiality videos of dudes fucking horses on my PC. That's got to be the weirdest one. About 8/9 of a year ago, back at uni, I fell asleep before any of my mates. They proceeded to set up a webcam and broadcast me sleeping, inviting people they'd met at freshers from around the campus to comment bitch about me. Just fucking weird, if nothing else. A girl peed in my bong. One time I had a party, and a very drunk girl was upset she wasn't getting attention. In the middle of a room with like 15 people in it, she was wearing a skirt and starting peeing in my bong from above it. Like crouching above it and just straight up peeing in it, didn't even budge or was phased. Everyone was in shock. *edit**. She's actually currently a news anchor, and every time I see her I just can't help but think, dude, you peed in my bong. I invited a good high school friend and my boyfriend at the time to Hanukkah dinner with my family. The boyfriend was fine, but the friend was acting like my parents were our age and started doing stupid shit like deep-throating bananas and alluding to choking on a cock and throwing up. My parents kept politely asking him to tone it down, but he wouldn't. Eventually my dad lost his shit and yelled, "Stop it," and told him to get the fuck out. I have never cringed harder in my entire life. My parents host a big 4th of July party every year. A couple hundred people usually attend, except this year of course. Last year, my mom spots a young-looking girl asking for drinks and vape hits from randoms. She had been lying inconsistently about her age, and was sloppy drunk. We tried to find out who she was and where she came from for a while, until eventually figuring out she was a distant relative that had been adopted by her grandmother, my great-aunt, from her parents. Don't know the exact details, I assume her birth parents weren't great. When we confronted her guardian with her behavior, her attitude was, and so. We had to pester them for half an hour and physically escort them back to their car to make them leave. The girl, who had variously said she was 18, 20, 22, and other ages, actually turned out to be **12**. A friend of mine told me this story. A guy he invited into his house, I guess a friend, was laughing at him for taking care of his grandma, and because he couldn't afford a nursing home for her.